Thank you. I understand. I think all we have at this point is your budget in brief. I don't think we have your congressional justifications of your budget yet. Is that correct?
I don't believe so.
Okay, and is there any reason for a delay in getting that to us?
I suspect part of it is related to the shutdown and just delaying our ability to get it out.
Any expectation about when we can get a more detailed explanation of your budget?
We can certainly get you one. I can get you one as soon as I can. I'm hoping later this week, but not completely sure on that.
Okay. First of all, I just want to associate myself fully with my chair's remarks. I just find it unbelievable, the cuts that were suggested in NOAA. And this comes from somebody that has believed in NOAA for a long, long time. I think many of us do. I think we believe in your mission. I think we believe it's critical, not just to the safety of folks and property around the world, but in a whole range of issues, really critical to our overall mission, scientific advancement, certainly our atmospheres as they are entering a critical phase, and our oceans that are entering a critical phase. So I don't get the reductions, and I don't get where those came from. I cannot believe that anybody in NOAA that believes in the mission of NOAA supports these cuts, and so I have to assume that somebody somewhere told you, hey, cut it. So is it correct that this was a top-down directive to reduce by that much in NOAA, or was this some bottom-up judgment about priorities within NOAA?
Our primary mission was just to focus on dealing with some tough choices, and we really chose to prioritize our core mission and essential functions over a lot of the external grants.
Okay. Well, let me give you an example in your budget as I understand it. I was born and raised in Hilo, Hawaii. Hilo, Hawaii has had two devastating tsunamis in recent history, 1946 and 1960. I actually was there in 1960. I was a young boy. Our family routinely evacuated every time there was an earthquake anywhere in the Pacific Rim. There was an earthquake in the danger zone. We didn't know if a tsunami was coming or not. We got out. And we would do that about once a year. We lived down by the ocean. We were in the danger zone. My school was in the danger zone. One day in 1960, the siren came on. We evacuated. We went to high ground. I went to sleep. I woke up. My town was devastated. There were 61 dead. And that was true throughout the Pacific Rim. There was incredible damage in Chile. Japan, loss of life, California, loss of life throughout the Pacific Rim from a tsunami that was generated. And that was really the genesis for the tsunami warning systems that are so perfected today. The problem of why people died in Hilo in 1960 was that they didn't believe a tsunami was coming. They had no independent verification. They had an evacuation warning once a year, and they got into the lull of thinking, well, it's not going to happen this time around. And so when I see that you have proposed in this budget to cut the Pacific Warning Center, which seems to, which may be a small amount in the big picture, but it's really, really critical to assure people of when a tsunami is and isn't coming, which still happens once a year. We have an earthquake somewhere in the Pacific Rim. I don't get it. I don't, that's a budget cutter up above you somewhere saying, well, let's just cut that. We don't understand the importance. And I'm sitting here telling you I lived through it. And that's very, very important to people. So can you elucidate a little bit on that one subject, why the tsunami warning function in the Pacific is being cut?
So the function itself is not. We were looking at consolidating the warning centers. Right now we have two. We were looking at consolidating it to one. The actual DART array, as well as we're actually exploring some other potential capabilities. So I'll get into those in a second. But the DART array is fully funded. That's not going to decrease. It's the consolidation of the warning centers. There's actually the potential for us. We have a plus of $2.2 million for commercial data buys off ships, and there's some new interesting tsunami detection capability on several commercial ships. And now that they're installing SATCOM on these ships, there might be a way that we can actually enhance our tsunami detection capability through this data.
Will your scientists come before Congress and tell us that this replacement array, facility, capability that you suggest is going to be equally safe or safer from a tsunami prediction perspective than what we have now? Or is this simply about cutting budgets?
It won't be less safe. We haven't seen the data yet, so until we actually see the data and run the tests, it's going to be hard to quantify how much of an improvement it'll add.
Okay, well, I would suggest to you that that's putting the cart before the horse, because you're proposing to cut out that whole warning center before you've demonstrated and said with assurance that it's going to be safer. So I don't know why you're sitting here cutting it right now when you don't have the conclusions yet. But anyway, we can move on. I'm going to move on. Thank you. Sorry, I'm still on the overall budget cuts and trying to figure out what the message we are to take from the administration is on the budget cuts. And I understand that you felt you were under, or perhaps I'm putting words in your mouth, but felt you were under directions to do substantial reductions. As I look at kind of where the reductions really fell the worst on, it just seems inescapable that the programs of NOAA that are focused on the oceans, and I don't mean on fisheries management, I mean on the conservation and health and welfare of our oceans overall, were the ones that took the biggest hit. I see the National Ocean Service, if my math is correct, 65% of FY enacted, OAR, Ocean and Atmospheric Research, I don't know the division there, but 55% of prior enacted, whereas really your atmospheric was reduced, and your satellites were, for the most part, maintained. Now, I breathe the same ocean, I breathe the same air as everybody else in Hawaii, and we have the same use for the satellites, all of which is incredible research and contributions by NOAA. But you know, if you look at the map above the chair over there, you'll see that in Hawaii we kind of live in the middle of a big ocean, so we're more focused on the ocean. So was there some judgment within NOAA or somewhere else that somehow oceanic research was not pulling its weight, or too many external grants, or is that a priority judgment I should take from this budget exercise?
As far as the OAR research, we're funding climate at 88 million, oceans at 98, and weather at 110. But I would point out that a lot of the weather research we're doing benefits the climate research, so it's pretty linear across the board. Oceans are it's part of my life. I mean, surfing and fishing are my two favorite hobbies. One of the things that we are funding,
We have something in common, by the way. So.
I know. I've been to Hawaii multiple times. I love it there.
Thank you.
One of the things I'd like to point out is our national Oceans Partnership Program. So we'll be relying heavily on public-private partnerships with key stakeholders on this to do a lot of the work. Whether it's actual research or just outreach. I think that there's a lot of opportunities here, both on the oceanographic prediction side as well as the observing side, not just in the water chemistry, but also bathymetry.
Okay. Can I switch back? I just need to switch. I'm not sure that I understand your answer. One part of your answer could be that we are going to essentially privatize a lot of the functions of NOAA and, as you say, lean on the private sector for that. And I'm not sure that that is the right policy decision. But anyway, we can have that discussion further. Can I switch back to the NOAA fleet and talk to you about the NOAA fleet? Because your recapitalization program, which I fully agree with, called for replacement of NOAA ships over time, but assumed that the Hi'i'alakai, which is the NOAA ship home ported in Hawaii, would be continued in place for some period of time into the future. And as you and I know, the Hi'i'alakai is no longer seaworthy. And that came as a sudden surprise to many people. And so therefore, the functions that are carried out of Hawaii are discontinued from that perspective. I think you mentioned, well, two questions. First of all, have you considered revising your recapitalization program to accelerate ship construction and to home port replacement ship in Hawaii, number one? And then number two, what is your plan in this budget for fulfilling the research needs of the Hawaii-based NOAA activities? I think that if I look at, I don't think you mentioned $3 million in your answer to my colleague, but I'm not sure. Is that allocated to Hawaii replacement time, or is it across the board? I see 200,000 in here, but I don't know where the 3 million is in the materials that you gave us.
So the 3 million is directed at trying to offset all of the work that the EALACI was doing. And so whether we can use that funding to do it on other NOAA ships, or we have to charter other vessels or contract it out, is to be determined based on the specific requirements. There are some type of requirements that are very specific to the type of vessel based on instrumentation and how the vessel's outfitted. So those could be limiting factors. As we go through the revision of this plan, we would certainly love to work with you on this.
I appreciate that. So just to recap what you just said, the 3 million would essentially buy replacement time for EALACI through the next fiscal year?
That's the plan.
Okay. And what about my question on revising the recapitalization plan to account for the EALACI's departure?
We would definitely love to work with you on the development of that.
Thank you.
Oh, unless you have something I could